Summary of this boy's life by Tobias Wolff. Tobias Wolff and his mother Rosemary are currently traveling across the nation from Florida to Utah. When Tobias was younger, he was known by the name Jack. Rosemary is running away from a bad relationship and thinks that the uranium boom in Utah will help her and her son get rich. But when they get to Utah, the mines are empty. Roy, Rosemary's abusive lover, has tracked them across the country. As he works his way back into Rosemary and Jack's lives, Jack struggles with fear, anger, and the desire to get into trouble. These feelings get worse when Roy buys him a rifle and teaches him how to shoot it. Soon after, Rosemary and Jack leave Utah in the afternoon while Roy goes on a shooting trip. They get on a bus going to Seattle. When Jack and Rosemary get to Seattle, they stay in a boarding house until they get settled. Jack makes two good friends at school. One is named Terry, and the other is named Silver. Jack calls them both Terry. In the afternoons, the boys lust after girls on the Mickey Mouse Club and get into trouble by egging cars, stealing cigarettes, and breaking windows all over town. They move into a real house with two other women from the boarding house, Kathy and Marion, after a few months. As soon as Kathy and Marion get engaged, they tell Rosemary she should start dating too. But Jack knows that she has a history of going out with dangerous guys. Jack doesn't like Rosemary's new boyfriend Dwight because he thinks he's oafish and stupid, but Rosemary says he's a nice guy. Rosemary starts to spend more and more time with Dwight. Soon, she brings Jack up to Chinook, the town where he lives with his 3 kids from a previous marriage, to spend Thanksgiving with Dwight's family. Jack starts getting into more and more trouble at school after Thanksgiving. Rosemary tells Jack in the afternoon that Dwight has asked her to marry him. She isn't sure if she should accept his proposal, so she wants Jack to move up to Chinook for a while to see if they can combine their families before she makes a final choice. Jack doesn't want to go along with this plan, but he thinks he has no choice. As soon as Jack gets to Chinook, he starts to see a different side of Dwight, one that is sad, mean, and just plain weird. Dwight hits the beaver on purpose in the road on the way up to Chinook. He then tells Jack to pick up the dead animal and put it in the trunk because it's valuable. When Jack is too scared to touch the body, Dwight does it for him and scolds Jack for not having any guts. Dwight stops at a bar that night, leaving Jack alone in the car for a few hours. When Dwight comes out of the bar drunk, he scolds Jack for being lazy, stupid, and mean as he drives him home on the winding mountain roads. After that, things get worse because Dwight makes Jack do miserable and low-level jobs like shelling spiny horse chestnuts. He makes Jack work as a paper boy, but he keeps all of Jack's money and says he'll save it for later. In order to keep an eye on Jack at all times and make sure he has something to do, he signs him up for Boy Scouts, which Jack actually likes. In the spring, Rosemary decides she wants to accept Dwight's proposal. While on a trip to Chinook, she asks Jack privately if things have been going well with Dwight and makes it clear that it's still possible to back out. Once more, Jack feels stuck and tells his mom that everything is okay. When Jack wants to make friends, he avoids nice and decent boys like Sissy Arthur Gale and hangs out with bigger, wilder high schoolers instead. He tries to get close to his new step-siblings Skipper, Norma, and Pearl, but in different ways they have been affected by Dwight's need to be in charge. Dwight starts to verbally and mentally abuse Rosemary in front of the kids. As he shows more disregard for her, Jack writes a letter to Rosemary's brother in Paris, pleading with him to help them escape to France. The uncle of Jack writes back and offers to take Jack in as his own son. But Jack knows he can't leave his mother. Dwight wants Jack to leave the house and tells him to take the deal, but Jack says no. Norma moves to Seattle and gets engaged to a bad guy named Kenneth. When she brings him home to spend Christmas with the family, Dwight tells Jack to get all the chestnuts he sucked out of the attic so that they can roast them together. But when Jack gets up there, he sees that both the chestnuts and the beaver carcass have turned into pulps from not being cared for. As soon as Jack starts high school, he starts to daydream about living different lives and making plans to run away from Chinook. No matter what he says, he never does it, and Dwight's abuse gets worse. Jack has trouble in school and gets into more and more trouble with his bigger, bad-behaving friends Chuck Bolger and Jerry Huff because he drinks and causes more and more problems. Jack starts writing letters to his brother Jeffrey, who is a student at Princeton, and they don't talk much. After Dwight beats Jack up one afternoon, Jack calls Jeffrey and tells him what's really going on. Jack is told by Jeffrey that they will find a way to get him out of Washington, D.C., and he is told to apply to some good boarding schools. Jack has done badly in school for years, though, and when it comes time to apply to these places, he learns that the picture he has made of himself doesn't match up with the real person. Jack goes to the school office and steals paper and forms for transcripts. With the help of his sometimes friend Arthur, he then fakes his grades and letters of support. Jack and Arthur start fighting more and more, and when their teacher, Mr. Mitchell, challenges them to a boxing match, they do. As Jack hits his friend, he worries that Dwight is proud of him. The only school Jack gets into that turns him down is the Hill School in Pennsylvania. A graduate of the school, Mr. Howard, calls Jack to say that the school is interested in accepting him but wants to know more about him first. Mr. Howard takes Jack out for a milkshake and talks to him casually. Even though he tells Jack that prep school isn't for everyone, Jack is adamant that he wants to go to Hill. Jack cuts the tip of one of his fingers in shop class and has to stay in the hospital for a week. When he gets home, he needs to get rid of the pain so badly that he steals some of Dwight's whiskey. When Dwight tells him about the theft, they get angry with each other. Jack hurts his bad finger when Dwight pushes him. Rosemary tells Jack that she will get him out of the house right away and stop the abuse. Jack's family agrees to take him in, but when Jack moves in with Chuck, he finds out that Chuck is a drunkard who hurts himself when he's drunk. The boys keep getting into trouble. When the neighbors catch them taking gas, Mr. Bolger kicks Jack out of the house. Rosemary asks Mr. Bolger to let Jack stay for a little while longer because he has nowhere else to go. Mr. Bolger reluctantly agrees. A girl Chuck is accused of having an affair with says she will file rape charges against him if he doesn't marry her. This makes things even worse for Chuck. He tells the sheriff several times over the course of a few weeks that he'd rather go to jail than marry someone he doesn't care about. The crisis throws Chuck's life into chaos. Things get bad at the Bolger house, but Jack gets some good news. He has been accepted to Hill on a nearly full grant. Jack tells his mother the good news, and the two of them are happy. But there is a dark side to their happiness. Dwight has taken and hidden all of Jack's paper route money. Still, Jack and Rosemary are excited about their plans. Rosemary has a job in Seattle and lives there full-time. Chuck doesn't have to do anything because his friend Jerry Huff agrees to marry the pregnant girl. Things look good for a while. One night, Chuck and Jack break into Dwight's house in the middle of the night. All of Dwight's hunting weapons are stolen by Jack. The next day, when Chuck takes Jack to Seattle to meet with Mr. Howard and get fitting for school clothes, the guns are pawned. Jack loves taking something from Dwight, even though they don't get much money for it. Dwight did the same thing to Jack. Jack's father and brother spend the summer in California with him, but Jack's father has a mental breakdown and has to be taken to a mental hospital. In the fall, Jack goes to school, and Rosemary moves east with him and gets a job in Washington, D.C. Dwight comes to her new apartment over the Christmas break and tries to choke her. She fights him off and has him arrested. Jack has a hard time in school because he wasn't ready for how hard the work is. He doesn't do his work and keeps getting in trouble. Finally, in his senior year, he is kicked out of school and chooses to join the army. At the end of the book, an older Tobias thinks back on his youth and the assurance he once had that his dreams were his. This is something all young people feel, but it only lasts a few years before fading completely.
About the author. Tobias Wolff was born in Alabama in 1945 in Birmingham. His father was an aeronautical engineer and the son of a Jewish doctor. However, his family hid their Jewish roots by becoming Episcopal. Wolff's parents split up when he was 5 years old and his bigger brother was 12. As a child, Tobias and his mother moved around the country a lot before settling down in Concrete, Washington, when his mother got married again. They lived with an abusive Seattle City light worker for a few years. Those years were the base for Wolff's most famous and popular book, the memoir This Boy's Life. Wolff went to the Hill School in Philadelphia but failed and was kicked out for forging his papers and letters of support. From 1968 to 1972, he served in the U.S. Army and fought in the Vietnam War. After going to college at Oxford, he was given a prestigious position at Stanford. It is called the Stegner position, and many famous writers have been awarded it. Wolff taught and wrote at Syracuse for many years, and there he helped young writers like Alice Sebold and George Saunders grow as writers. He teaches writing and literature at Stanford University.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.